Welcome to the Prospect Warehouse Pod. This is episode number 2, and this is your host, Tim Kanak. You can find me on X at Fantasy Aceball. You can also watch this live. It's not live, it's recorded. You can watch it recorded on X or on YouTube as you so desire. You can see already, if you're watching this live, that I am solo today for the second episode. Even though last episode I was like, hey, if John or Doc can't make the pod, I'll bring a friend on. I'll bring one of my friends in the industry on the pod to talk a team. And I texted like 5 or 6 guys that were all like, hey, yeah, I would love to jump on the pod with you this weekend. And then they're like, what team are we going to talk about? I'm like, Colorado Rockies. The responses I got were like, I'm kind of busy. Or like, oh, who are you talking about next? Can I be on that one? I did not find anyone that I texted that wanted to talk about the Colorado Rockies. So here I am right now, podcasting solo for your pleasures. Hopefully we'll go pretty quick here. So let's jump right in and talk about the top 20 prospects for fantasy baseball for the Colorado Rockies. Again, emphasis on fantasy baseball. We don't care about the glove. Fielding doesn't matter. We just don't care. We're all here for fantasy, right? So number 20 is going to be starting pitcher Yujanyer Herrera. And let's see. This is my first time actually playing around as the host with all the upgrades. So let's see if I can make some things happen here. I'm going to make my face go away so you can see the board. You can see here. Here's number 20, Yujanyer Herrera with the Colorado Rockies. He is in high A. Herrera is a very interesting name, starting pitcher with some nice stuff, but 20-year-old in high A, so definitely need to see more here before we start bumping him up. Number 19 is a relief pitcher, Jaden Hill, who actually made the Rockies this year. He made it to the MLB. Pretty solid stuff. Looks like he could be a back-end reliever. For fantasy, how much do we care about a reliever unless they're going to get saves? Not too much, especially in Colorado. So generally, I'm going to push pitchers down in the Colorado Rockies org regardless, because we saw how a really, really good prospect like Chase Dolander last year could get rocked, no pun intended. He could get rocked when he gets to the majors despite having ridiculous minor league stuff. So I don't really care so much about prospect pitchers when it comes to the Rockies, unless they're really, really good. And even then, they still are going to get bumped down a significant amount within my rankings. Number 18 is shortstop Sebastian Blanco in the DSL. Sebastian Blanco, pretty nice year. Again, DSL, 17-year-old, but he had an even walk-to-K ratio, so pretty good plate skills. 300, 400, 400 slash, so 345 batting average is very nice. 81.4% contact rate is really good for the DSL. But, we would like to see some more power, only 3 bombs, but 11 steals. And this is a big thing. He had 60 runs scored in only 54 games for Sebastian Blanco. That's pretty crazy. And he's a big 6'1", 181 guy. So Sebastian Blanco, interesting DSL name to watch. Cristian Arguelles. This is a guy that I definitely want to talk about for a minute here. So Cristian Arguelles, if I'm saying that correctly, that's a little tough one for my Espanol. I've got a little bit of Miami Espanol, but it's no bueno. But Arguelles, 422 batting average, 528 OBP, 652 slug. So 4.56 slash line through 52 games this year is absolutely insane. More walks than Ks, 14% walk rate, 10% K rate. Unfortunately, we're not going to have F scores for him because he was only in the DSL, and he is a repeat DSL guy. So he and Edgar Montero, I think, are my 2 favorite repeat DSL guys from this year. But he had 5 bombs and 6 steals this season in the DSL with a 198 WRC plus and an 82.3% contact rate. And even last year in the DSL, he racked a 93.2% contact. So he's had really good contact rates despite having to repeat DSL. I don't know how fast they plan to move him. He is 18, but dude was a complete stud this year. 422, 528, 652 slash in 52 games. That's absolutely insane for Cristian Arguelles with the Rockies. Last guy in this tier here of 16 through 20 is Welinton Herrera, AA. Really, I don't want to even like spend too much time on this tier. He's okay. Herrera, decent name, who is a lefty reliever who throws hard. Throws high 90s, lefty reliever. Really good stats. But again, he's a reliever. 27.2 K minus walk rate and got up to AA this year. But he's going to be a reliever for the Rockies. If he was in a different org, I'd be a lot more hyped on him. But he's a lefty reliever, so will he close? Probably unlikely. But he is 21 with a ridiculous K minus walk rate. And unfortunately, he will be with the Rockies. If he gets traded, I'll be more excited for Welinton Herrera, who, especially for like holds, because he has like potential of being like the top lefty guy. But you know how it is. Lefty saves aren't that common. 15 is Griffin Herring with the Rockies in high A. This is actually one that I'm going to show you. So let me kind of share the screen here if you're watching as I figure these things out here. And you can see on the tool, we've got Griffin Herring showing. Let's see if I can put my face up here too and not block anything. Okay, so we've got Griffin Herring here. He was traded from the Yankees to the Rockies in the Ryan McMahon deal. He was one of the guys that came over. We're going to actually talk about two guys who came over in that trade in this top 20 for the Rockies here. So you can see a 282 JA ERA for Griffin Herring. With the Yankees, he was in low A. So we have, since he was with the Yankees, some pitch level data on Griffin Herring. We don't have any data from when he was in high A or from when he was with the Rockies, but this is when he was in low A. So we have some pitch level data here. You can see he does not throw hard. 90.6 velocity, and he throws a sinker primarily over the fastball, which is 90.5. But he does have a lot of really good movement on these pitches. So his fastball has a vertical movement of 10.9 and his sinker is 10.7. If you're thinking about an induced vertical break, usually there's like a 6 to 8 inch bump depending on the pitcher. So that means he could be anywhere between like 16 to 18 inches of induced vertical break on these pitches, which is really good. And then the sinker also has 7.3 inches of horizontal movement. And that's why his sinker, like this is a really good sinker swinging strike. 13.7 swing strike rate on a sinker is very, very good. Slider 20.6, even though it has like no movement. Look at this. His slider only has 0.4 inches of vertical movement and negative 1.8 on the horizontal. So it doesn't have a lot of break, but it breaks quickly right at the end of the pitch, which is why it is able to get such a high swing strike rate. And so you can see here that he doesn't have high velocity, so he probably will not be a front end type guy, but maybe he could be a back end starter. He did have a really good season, even between both levels on the whole season here, 282 JA ERA, and he was rocking some very good strike rates, 31.4 with a 10.8 walk rate. So that's a 21% K minus walk rate on the season here for a Griffin Herring. All righty. And of course, I got signed out as I was about to on my thing as I was about to move to the next guy. So number 14 in our rankings is JB Middleton, who was drafted this year. So JB Middleton was the Rockies' second round pick, and he was drafted really high because the Rockies had the second pick in the second round. So basically right after the comp pick. So he went 45th overall from Southern Mississippi. Really interesting stuff. 23.4 K minus walk rate in NCAA last season. 231 ERA, 0.85 whip. Now, like he wasn't pitching in the SEC or anything like that, so it's not like he was like in the best conferences, but that's pretty good. JB Middleton is my number 14 guy. And then we've got here 13 is Sean Sullivan. So I'm going to pop Sean Sullivan up here on the board for us. A lot of people are pretty high in Sean Sullivan. Those who have been following me for years now know that I've actually been pretty high on Sean Sullivan in the past. The main thing is we've got to make sure we got the right Sean Sullivan pulled up here because there is also a Pirates Sean Sullivan. So you've got the right one. We got the Rockies one. So Sean Sullivan, Really funky delivery, almost sidearm from the left side. But again, he's not a high velo guy. He only throws like 89, 90 miles an hour. He's been hovered around my top 150 before. He's been in my top 150 before. But watching how Chase DeLander came out and like wasn't successful, it just makes me again knock down a lot of these pitchers that I kind of like. So Sean Sullivan, even though like his stuff isn't amazing, he has very, very good command. You can see 5.9% walk rate on the season. And even if we bring it back to last year, over the last 2 years, 4.6% walk rate on the last 2 years with a 2.76 J8 ERA. So this is a dude who barely walks anybody. He's got really wacky stuff. Like, I don't throw anything over a 50 grade on any of his pitches, but the delivery maybe will play up in chorus. We won't know until we see it. So just an interesting name to keep an eye out for is number 13, Sean Sullivan. Number 12, this dude actually lights up the F scores, Sterlin Thompson. So Sterlin Thompson is a dude that I have liked for a long time. It's not Sterling, by the way. It's Sterlin Thompson. I want to say he was a first or second round pick here as I pull him up for the Rockies. This would actually be something very useful that we could add to this, John, for when you listen, is when they were drafted. So I don't have to go look on Fangraphs. Yes, he was a first round pick right at the end, a 31st overall pick from Florida back in 2022. So you can see on the F scores, he's pretty solid. I don't think Sterling Thompson is going to be a superstar, but I do think he could be a very good player, like a very solid role player, if not like a third outfielder on a team. For fantasy, probably like solid points guy or maybe like a fifth outfielder in deeper leagues. But you could see here, pretty good line, 296, 392, 519 on the season, and a 103 hit tool with a 111 power, 101 discipline. He's not the fastest, 89, but all these tools here are slightly above average across the board, except for the speed. You can see the contact is 77%, zone contact is almost 85%, and he doesn't chase. But like the exit velocities are barely above average. So 105, 190th is slightly above average. 87.8 average is slightly above average. And then a 113 max. His air pull 15.8 is about league average. So batting like 7% barrel rate, like pretty much all these numbers are like league average. So I think this is the thing you have to think about with Sterling Thompson. He's more or less just like a replacement level player with maybe a little bit more power in there, and he's going to be playing in cores, so that can kind of help because as long as he's going to start, like he would be very useful. If he doesn't start, maybe not so. And I don't see any superstar type potential with Sterling Thompson, but he is a very solid player. He's like your Thomas Sajazi type, like very nice role player, I think, with the Rockies to watch out for. Number 11 is Braylen Wimmer. We're going to pull Wimmer up here real quick. And this is why I recommend watching, because then you can actually check out the tools so you can see all the great F-score stuff on all these players. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to see it. So I recommend watching if you can. Braylen Wimmer really lighting up the F-scores. 109 power, 104 hit tool, 98 discipline, 156 speed. And that's because on the season, through high A and double A, 296, 366, 462 slash. One thing with Wimmer, and that's going to push him down in my rankings, is that he's almost 25 years old, and he's only played to double A so far. So since we don't have like advanced level data for Wimmer, he's definitely playing above like age to level. For his age, he should be in AAA at this point, if not the majors. So that is something that kind of pushes Wimmer down for me a bit. Also, it does run pretty high BABIPs. So some of this stuff is pretty BABIP fueled, despite having a 104 hit, because his angles are solid. So even though he only has a 74% contact rate, it's like slightly below average. He does hit to decent angles because he has a decent line drive rate. So that is something that's going to help him maybe get to a little bit more. But on the season, he had 17 home runs and 37 steals. For Braylen Wimmer, a 6'3", 200-pound shortstop / third baseman / left fielder. He was kind of like playing all those positions, left and right field. I think he ends up in the outfield, even though he was playing 13 games at third base in AA, 13 games in left field, and 8 games in right field. is where he played. So shortstop, I think, is out, even though he did play this year in high A. He did not play shortstop in double A. So just something to keep an eye on for Braylen Wimmer, my number 11 Rockies prospect. I'm going to pull the screen up here again for you to look. So let me X out of this just so you can take a look here at our rankings, if I can figure this out. There we go. So you can see where we're at. 11 Wimmer, 12 Sterlin Thompson, even though I've got a typo in there. 13 Sullivan, 14 JV Middleton, 15 Griffin Herring, 16 Welinton Herrera, 17 Cristian Arguelles, 18 Sebastian Blanco, 19 Jaden Hill, 20 Yujanyer Herrera. Now we're going to get to the top 10. Number 10, this guy came over from the Yankees in that deal. That's Roc Riggio. So he came over from the Yankees to the Rockies in the Ryan McMahon trade. The Rockies barely trade too, which is interesting. So just something to think about here. They barely trade. So it's interesting that they actually made a deal. And they got some pretty good prospects out of it. Think about it. If the Rockies did that more often, maybe they'd actually have a pretty decent farm system. Some of these guys are pretty interesting, though. So let's look at Roc Riggio, because he also is a guy who just lights up the F scores. So Roc Riggio, second baseman, only 5'9", 180 pounds, but look at these F scores here. And he's 23 at double A. 121 power, 100 hit tool, 104 discipline, 171 speed, 113 durability. Contact rate's only 73%. So again, a lot of this hit tool is going to be more on angles. The reason that he's has a decent hit tool, even though his contact rates are below average, is because he has a 45% pull rate and a 45% fly ball rate on the season. So now, while we don't have air pull data since he's not in AAA, we don't have the StatCast data, we do have fly balls and we do have pulled balls. So we can kind of do our own math a little bit on that. And it's not going to be a perfect equation, but you can try. So he does pull fly, which is why his power is at 121 and why he hit 20 home runs on the season as a tiny little 5'9" second baseman. So 20 bombs, 17 steals on the season for Roc Riggio, second baseman for the Rockies. Adele Amador has not really panned out to date. So I guess maybe we have our backup option here. And it's a cool name. I mean, come on, Roc Riggio. That's a pretty sweet baseball name. You can't go wrong with that. So I like Roc. He's an interesting name to be on the lookout for. Number 9 is a guy that was just drafted. I think we have some data on him. It's Max Belyeu. So he was drafted in the second round. And he's interesting because he's a guy that had the potential to be a first-round pick and then ended up going number 74 in the draft. Got paid still over $1 million. Went to Texas. But this is a guy that I like a lot. Obviously, we don't have a lot of data to pull from, only 90 plate appearances here that we're looking at. So I wouldn't be too concerned with some of the data, but he did show some good power so far, and he started at high A. They skipped A-ball entirely for Max and brought him to high A. I don't really care about the batting average and stuff for him. I do like him. I do like the swing. I do think that we have a nice athlete here. So that's why he ranks ahead of Riggio for me, despite Riggio already performing at double A, because Riggio is going to have a power cap as a 5'9" guy. He's completely dependent on on pulling the ball, and he's a lefty too. So air pull from the left side may be a little bit tougher. But again, at least we're talking about hitters that are going to be playing in Colorado. So we're going to skip him here a little bit because we don't have as much data on him. We're going to go to number 8, Zac Veen. This is a guy that we saw this year in the majors, and he didn't get enough of a sample size to really find out if he's going to be good or not as a major leaguer. But he was really good in AAA this season. I wouldn't say elite, but he was solid. One thing with Veen is that his power is going to be capped because you can see he only has a 108 max EV, but he does hit the ball hard pretty and on a pretty consistent basis, 90.6 average, 105.4 90th. So he does hit the ball hard consistently. The other thing for him is air pull is down, 13.9 is below average, but he does have a 26.3% line drive rate, only a 5.3% barrel. So he's not really great at getting to good angles, but he gets a lot of line drives. So he doesn't get to angles consistently for power, but he gets to angles consistently for being a good doubles hitter. So I think in the majors, he's going to be more like a doubles speed guy. So I think that Veen will probably cap out, even being with the Rockies around 15 home runs with full playing time. but I do think that he can be like a 30-plus doubles guy, and he should net a decent amount of stolen bases if he gets regular playing time. You can see the EV distributions here on the chart as we're looking, and the launch angle distributions right here as well. So the launch angles, like I said, pretend more to like line drive launch angles between 0 and 20 than they do to home run power type angles. You can see an 11-degree average launch angle. He does hit the ball on the ground a decent amount, 46%. So that is one thing. But the good thing about that is that he's fast. So that's not just wasted outs. Those are hits that he can hopefully run more out than he gets out. So Zac Veen, I think we still has a decent amount of upside here, despite I think him being pretty capped in power for fantasy. Doubles, higher batting average than one might expect because his plate skills are only okay, 76.5 contact, 86.3 zone. So his hit tool is slightly above average, but I think he's going to run a higher batting average because of the speed. So I mentioned on the last podcast, for batting average, you kind of want to combine the hit tool, the 104 on the F scores, with the speed, the 176 speed. And that's, you want high hit and high speed is going to result in high batting average, if that makes sense. Number 7, we're going to get to a pitcher. It is Brody Brecht. So let's get in here and pull up the pitcher profile for Brecht. He was in high A, but unfortunately, since he was with the Rockies in high A, we don't have pitch level data. But we do have JAERA, a 252 JAERA on the season, which is more or less John's Sierra equation. And this is what I love, 36.4% K rate. And that's actually dating back to last year. So let's bring it to just this year. For this year alone, he ran a 23% K minus walk and a 35.9 K minus or K rate. So decent amount of walks, which you can see the pitch count per inning pitch is a little bit higher than one would like, especially for a college guy that's in A-ball. But Brecht is one of these guys, when he was picked by Iowa, he was a wide receiver, I want to say. I remember him being a football guy. I think he was a wide receiver for the Iowa Hawkeyes. And then he kind of just went to pitching in baseball, I think his senior season, I want to say. Maybe or junior year. Junior year, not senior year. And then was drafted. And so, he's a project. He was picked as a project. And I think that the Rockies got him because they picked him in the second round. And that was a guy that I liked as a potential first rounder at one point. They picked him 38th overall even. But he's a project, but 17.8% swinging strike rate on the season. So, the stuff is there, 17.9. So the stuff's all there. It's just, will he limit walks? Can he learn to limit walks? And how fast do they move him? Because he was only at A-ball all year as a 22-year-old. You would like to see someone of that age, a college guy, getting moved more aggressively than that. But I think they're trying to figure out the walks and the command at the lower levels so that he is not doing that at the higher levels. That's Brody Brecht, my number 7 Rockies prospect. Let's get to number 6. This is a guy that is very interesting, had a really good year, kind of came out and had maybe one of the better years for the Rockies. That's Jared Thomas, outfielder in AA for the Rockies. And, of course, there's 4 Jared Thomases here. So now I've got to make sure we get the right one up on the F scores. You're going to have to play along with me here as we try to figure this one out. So we need to have, instead of a number, what team they're on with the Thomases. Here we go. Here's the correct Jared Thomas. So Jared Thomas, kind of, you can see actually one of the great things about these tools, if you're watching, is that we have a 15-day moving OPS. You can see he actually finished the season pretty poorly, comparative to the rest of his season. And he only had a 107 ISO. So that's another thing with Jared Thomas. But he's a pretty interesting cat for the Rockies here. I like Jared Thomas, even though he also struck out a lot. And you can see the F scores are pretty high across the board for him. Hit tool is down because of the strikeouts, way too many strikeouts, which means not good contact rates. 71.3% is what I have on the full season. You can see we're only getting his AA stats in here for some reason instead of his full stats. Let's see if we can find a way to get all of it instead of just AA. There's got to be a way. If John was here, he would have done this in 10 seconds, but he's not here. Oh, here we go. StatCast games all. No. It's only basically it's not giving me all the games. It's only giving me his AA data here. Let's see if we can get all the data. Here we go. Boom. There it is. That helps his F scores a little bit too. Because now we're pulling in his high A data. So you can see he only had 44 plate appearances at AA, so of course that's going to drag everything down. But on the season, 324, 413, 492 batting average. And see, now the ISO goes up to 168. So here we go. This is the data that I wanted for Jared Thomas. 71% contact rate. That's it. But you can see, pretty solid player. 13 or 14 homers because he actually had what do you have? A complex? No, 14 homers in the season. We're missing one on this thing for some reason. Is missing one at AA because he had 3, not 2. And then 33 steals on the season for Jared Thomas. But he does run a high BABIP. So one thing to keep in mind with the BABIPs is that means it's more volatile. Because a lot of his batting average, because the hit tool's a 98, is speed driven. 141 speed, 98 hit tool. So he's probably not going to be a 324 average hitter. That's why the F score tools are so good instead of looking at the average and you say, oh, 324, this guy's going to be amazing. You probably want to temper those expectations a bit because the hit tool's only a 98 and the speed's only a 141. Veen has higher batting average ability based on these things. And you might say, then why do you have Thomas ranked ahead of Veen? I think I have Thomas ranked ahead of Veen, just more of a potential type thing. I think Thomas ultimately has more power potential in this bat than what we've seen from Veen because Veen has a lower max EV, but we don't have the exit velocity numbers from Thomas yet. So I may change my tune on this eventually once we do get the AAA data from Thomas next year. So he's my number 6 Rockies prospect for fantasy baseball. Let's get to number 5. Number 5 is Konnor Eaton, starting pitcher. I'm going to pull Eaton up right here. Boo, boo, boo. Konnor Eaton. Let's get it. There he is. 336 JAERA. You can see here, more efficient than Brecht with a 15.2 pitch count per inning pitched, which is kind of like what you want to see. That's about like, I think league average is close to that. You can actually see the game log here. He had a 12K 1 walk game pretty recently, and then followed up with a bad 4 strikeout 5 walk game. But I love looking at the game log because it shows you trending data of how good a guy is doing. He had this really nice stretch where he was a T10 guy for me a lot, like from this point here, like June 20th to July 24th. He was really, really strong. And I think he made the T10 3 or 4 times over the last season. If you're not familiar with the T10, I do a weekly podcast on the top 10 guys in the minor leagues for the week. And he made it a few times this year. One thing, though, look at this. He's given up 13 home runs on the season. He's going to be pitching in Colorado. That is a little scary. But I know that the Rockies really like Konnor Eaton because they had discussed having him they discussed back in spring training of him being a reliever and just being on the team to break camp last year instead of starting. But you can see starting's working out for him. He is really good this year. And especially as the Rockies, you'd much rather develop a starter than a reliever, even if you can take quick money on that, make him a reliever. Like, you'd rather this guy turns into a starter. So he's my top starter right now for the Rockies, now that Chase Dolander is no longer a prospect. Now let's get to number 4, Cole Carrigg, a hitter. I'm going to bring him up here so we can look at his stats. He actually, like on the back of the baseball card, didn't have the best season, Carrigg. And like, if you know me and you've been following me, you know, like going into the year, I thought Cole Carrigg was going to be a breakout this year. He didn't really do it, but the F scores still really like him. I'm not really sure like about the ballpark data offhand that he had this year. And I know Welsh mentioned, I think that he had another off the field incident and it's kind of like a hothead. So that's something to keep in mind too. But skills wise, the dude has ridiculous speed, a 180 speed score. And on top of that, the other skills are not bad. So a 102 hit, 110 power, 96 discipline. And you can look at the contact, and it's a 70.6 contact, which is below average. Like, that's not even slightly below average. That is just below average. You can be like, okay, Tim, he's got a weight like a decent below average. Like, it's not in the 60s, which scares me, but it's close. You say, why is this guy's hit tool 102 when his contact is so poor? And I'll tell you, it's because he has pretty solid angles. Almost 21% line drive rate and a 38% fly ball, 42% pull is okay. So his angles are at least decent enough to bump him to that, because what we're doing when we're trying to figure hit tool is we're not just getting contact rates and how much they hit the ball contact-wise, but we're trying to get quality contact is what we're looking for, not just regular like poopy contact, like dribbler contact. We want quality contact when these guys hit the ball. That's what the hit tool F score is trying to judge here, quality contact. And then the power is telling you how much ISO they're going to get, how many total bases. Power is geared toward total bases, so doubles and homers, because triples are like more like speed based, but doubles and homers for power. Hit tool is quality contact. Are they going to hit hard singles? And then speed is going to tell you, like how many bases they're going to steal and how many of the ground balls they're going to be able to run out. Discipline, 96, obviously, like not great. Struck out way more than I hoped this year, but I still like Carrigg from a fantasy perspective more than a real life perspective because of this speed. And that's just something to keep in mind. Switch hitting wise, you can see he was pretty rough this year against righties. So from the left side, not as good. Even though he had 13 bombs from that side, the slug was still below 400. So that's just more of like a quantity thing, but definitely a better hitter from the right side against lefties. So just something to keep in mind with Carrigg. Hopefully at AAA, we see some of these numbers bump up for him next year. He's still only 23, so there's a lot of room here. Now let's get to number 3 on the list. It is Robert Calaz. A lot of people are down on Calaz. He had a really good 2024, and 2025 was just kind of like meh, but I think he was better, and he finished strong, like decently strong. So I think he was better than what a lot of people give him credit for, because a lot of people are going to look at the contact 68% and just be completely out on him, but the power is still there. Now, do I ever think that he's going to be a good, like like good hitter? I don't know. The hit tool is 101 only because of the angles. Because again, the contact is in the 60s, so that's bad. But he does have really good power angles. So I think, could he just be Yanquiel Fernandez? Yeah, there is that scare, especially, looking at Rockies guys, but can he be, I don't know, like if maybe he is just Yanquiel, but I think that he's still young enough that there's more power potential here for him. So, I mean, he was only 19 this year. He only hit 10 home runs this year in 99 games. So you look at the home run totals and you kind of get, yeah. But last year he was so good. Last year he had a 290 ISO between complex and A-ball, and he had a 245 ISO at A-ball. It was only 13 games. But, like, I'm not ready to just give up on him. I think that we could see a nice little power rebound next year. He's still only 19 this year. And I think that there's enough power upside here for fantasy that we shouldn't just drop him off of our radars, and we should still be watching Calaz because that's in there. There's power in here. There's not speed. The plate skills, he needs to cut the Ks down. Hit tool, if he hits in the low 70s contact rate for his power, I'm happy. But that's Robert Calaz, number 3. Let's get to number 2. That is Charlie Condon, who we have a full year of data from now. First round pick last year, obviously like one of the best college seasons of all time. And then he was really bad last year in the minors. This year, better. High A, decent season, as you can see if you're watching. 309, 429, 417 at high A. Double A is where all the power has come from. Like, he only had 3 bombs and 168 bats in high A, and then 11 bombs and 237 at bats in double A. So I think a lot of that is a bit stadium dependent. One thing to keep in mind is that the F scores are against league. So the weights are brought back when you see high A against the league that he was in high A. And then the same thing with double A. And it's going to be the same thing in triple A if they're in the PCL. And it's going to be weighted back against those averages for that league. So these are league dependent. The F scores, they're all weighted back against the league average. But you would like to see better F scores in this from a first round pick with the pedigree that Charlie Condon has. 114 power, 98 hit, 99 discipline, 43 speed, 121 durability. That's honestly pretty bad. He's been pretty disappointing in the minors, but the pedigree is still there, and we can't give up completely on Condon because of that pedigree. While like I don't have him in my top 50, and I think he's like barely in my top 100 at this point, he still has pedigree. He's still 6'6". He still has power, and he's still going to be on the Rockies. So he'll probably overperform. Like, his back of the baseball card numbers are probably going to overperform anything that we get under the hood. just because he's going to be with the Rockies. But I'm kind of excited to see what he does when he gets to AAA. I want to see some of the StatCast data. And you can see like his 15-day moving OPS. There's a lot of 1000s on here. So that's pretty good. Like he had some good games at the end of the season. So, like some of this stuff trending wise, I think that is hopeful for him closing out a lot of power at the end of last year. And like I'm not out on him. A lot of people are just completely out on Condon right now. I'm not there yet. Last guy we're going to talk about, number 1 for the Rockies, is Ethan Holliday, their first round pick this year. Obviously, brother of Jackson Holliday, son of Matt Holliday, and he's all power right now. His hit tool only 92. This is the only thing that we have enough data from right now to even give a score on, because all these F scores, you'll notice, will be blank at the beginning of the year, next year, because we need minimum qualification data for like any rookies anyway. It'll pull through 2 years of data, so at least we'll have old data to pull on when we are looking at the beginning of the year next year. But for like fresh guys like Ethan Holliday, a lot of these F scores are based on minimum qualification data before we get anything substantial that we can actually grade. So right now, the only thing that we have that we can even grade is the hit tool, which at 92 is pretty bad. That's like a 40 hit tool, maybe 30 hit tool. It's like a 30 to 40 hit tool, somewhere in that range at the best. So, Ethan Holliday's hit tool not looking good. 57% contact is bad. So, like, yeah, that's probably like a 30 hit tool, because one of the things that I kind of discussed last pod that I didn't really get into too much because we're going to do more like a technical pod at some point is the hit tool is less variable. So, like power, for instance, you'll see F powers that go from like 50 to like 170. Hit tools, the worst is like an 85. And the best is like a 120. So you have way less variance on the hit tool than you do on the other scores. Like we just saw like a 40 speed. So like speed, for instance, will go from like 40 to like 250, just because, that's the way it works. So there's way less variance on hit tool. So you have to think about like a 1 point difference on hit tool is a lot more important than a 1 point difference on power or speed when you're looking at the F scores. But that's Ethan Holliday. We see him here. There's still a ton of power potential here. And that's why I have him ranked so high. And I think the hit tool is only going to get better because his brother is Jackson Holliday, who has an amazing hit tool. And his dad is Matt Holliday, who always had an amazing hit tool. So I think that Ethan's going to work into at least probably closer to a league average hit tool than what we've seen, just because he has such a good support system. So that's it. Thank you for watching or listening or whatever to this podcast. This is episode 2 of the Prospect Warehouse pod, where we discuss Rockies prospects going into next year. And next time on the show, I haven't decided who we're going to do yet. We're trying to do worst to first. So we'll see. We're going to try to pound out a couple of these podcasts every single week. Thanks for listening and watching, and subscribe so you get these tools, these beautiful tools. If you're only listening and not watching, you're hurting yourself, because if you're watching, you see all this data. But if you want these tools, you have to subscribe to MLB Data Warehouse, and that's going to give you an edge against all your competitors for fantasy. So go subscribe. Thanks for watching. Peace out, everybody. Have a good one.